Hi! I'm here to do our kids' church lesson again today. And also, happy Mother's Day to all the moms who might be watching with the kids today, or moms who are watching. We're going to have something special for the moms here in a little bit. But first, we're going to start off our lesson with prayer. Now, if you've been watching our videos, you know that there are 4 types of prayers that we talk about in kids' church. We talk about I love you prayers. We like to say thank you prayers, I'm sorry prayers, and please prayers. And today we're going to say some thank you prayers to Jesus. So think of something that you are thankful for, or lots of things. Be sure and thank God for your mom or the person who takes care of you today, since this is their special day too. So I'm going to say my prayer, and then you can pause the video and say your prayer, and then we'll keep on going. Dear Jesus, thank you for my mom today. Thank you for giving me a mom to raise me, and who raised me well, and who took me to church when I was a kid and taught me how to love you and how to serve you, and set a good example for me to do those things. I love you, Jesus. Amen. Okay, well, since today is Mother's Day, we're going to sing a song that's called I Love My Mom, and you can sing it too. You can play the video over and over again and practice it and learn it to sing for your mom for Mother's Day, or you could just sing it for her right now. But this is a special song called I Love My Mom. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that song this morning, and we love all of our moms and the people who take care of us, and we thank God for them, that God gave them to us just to take care of us. We're going to go on with our lesson today. Bring out the 7 C's of history poster here. All right. A long time ago, we learned about creation, the first C in history, when God created the world and everything in it, and everything was good. And then we learned about corruption when Adam and Eve did the very first sin and they disobeyed God. And because of that, all of us are sinful. We all have sin in our hearts. A little bit later, we talked about the catastrophe of the flood that God sent. And he sent that flood because all the people on the earth were wicked and evil and sinful. But he did save one family, and that was Noah and his family. So God punished the sin that was there with a worldwide flood. And today we are moving on to the fourth C, which is confusion. And it said God punished sin by confusing the language. All right, so confusion is what we're talking about today, and language. Language is just a set of words that we use to communicate with each other that we each understand, right? So I'm speaking English. That's the language that I know, and I know most of you speak English. So when I speak in English, you can understand me. When you speak in English, I can understand you back. But there are several other languages besides just English. Have you guys ever heard anyone speaking in another language besides English? Or maybe can you speak in another language besides English? Or know some words in another language? Right, okay. So there are lots and lots of other languages. There's Spanish and German, Hebrew, Irish, Japanese, right? There's lots and lots of other kinds of languages. In fact, some people who can't speak or maybe they can't hear, they might be able to use sign language, and they use their hands to communicate and talk with people, or watch other people using their hands and understand what they are talking about. Isn't that neat? All kinds of different languages. Now the question for today is, why? Why do we have all of these different languages? Why would God do that? Doesn't he want us all to just love each other? Yes, he does. So we're going to look and see why on earth we have all these different languages. We're going to look in the Bible, because the Bible is true, and these are God's words to us, so where better to find out our answers than looking in the Bible. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 11, verse 1. Now listen carefully. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. All right, so how many languages were in the whole earth at this time? One. There was just one language. Now there's lots and lots, but back here there was just only one language. Everyone spoke the same thing. You see, when the flood of the catastrophe around Noah's time was over, Noah and his family got off the ark, and their families got bigger. They had kids, and their kids had kids, and their kids had kids, and there was lots of people on the earth again. And they could all understand each other perfectly because they all spoke the same language. And they were also all living in the same place. Now, God told the people to take their families and fill the whole earth. That means God wanted them to move all over to different places in the world and fill it up with people. He wanted them to move away from each other and find new places to build their homes, but the people did not want to do what God said. They liked being together in one place, and they didn't want to leave. But if they're not going to obey God, then what are they doing? They're sinning. Okay? Even if we don't want to do what God tells us to do, we have to do it, or else we are going to get punished. Like the people before the flood were wicked and evil all the time. God punished them. If these guys aren't following what God says, they're going to get punished too. So let's listen. Instead of doing what God told them to do, let's listen and hear what they did do. So let's look at Genesis 11, verse 4. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. Did you hear what God's word said? What were the people going to do? They're going to build what? A city and a tower. They wanted to build a tower and a city because they all wanted to stay together. The people did not want to be dispersed and scattered around the whole world. It said that. Let's build ourselves a city right here and a tower so that we don't have to be scattered around the whole world. They didn't want to obey God. And how high did the people want their tower to go? It says here in verse 4, they came, said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens." So a tall tower to reach to the heavens. So they started making bricks and they started building. And when the people decided to build a tower to stay together, were they obeying God? No, they were not obeying God. They were disobeying God, so they were sinning. That's called sin. And how does God feel about sin? Does he like it? Does he like it when we sin? No, God hates sin. God is holy and just, and he does not like sin. And when these people decided to disobey God, he had to punish them. So listen to this verse in Genesis 11, verse 7, and tell me what God's punishment was for these people. "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." What did God do to punish the people for their sin? Did you hear it? This is God saying, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." You know what that means? They're all going to speak different languages. God confused the people by making them speak differently. They couldn't understand each other anymore. Can you imagine doing your work and talking with your friend, and then suddenly the words coming out of your friend's mouth are in a different language and you can't understand them? All the people around you are speaking in languages you don't know and you can't understand, and you can't figure out what they're trying to say to you. What do you think that'd be like? That'd be crazy. That'd be just chaos. You wouldn't understand anything that's going on. All of a sudden, you can't understand people. It might be something like this. Have you ever heard of these words? Bonjour, ciao, aloha, hola. Did you understand what those words were? Now, those words were hello in all kinds of different languages. We know that now, but then it was just instantly they started to speak differently. All right, that was the punishment that God brought on his people. He changed the one language that they all spoke into many different languages. Dads and moms and kids probably spoke all in the same way, but they couldn't understand other families. It was all very confusing. Now I want you to listen to this. God told us what he did after he changed their language. I'm going to read verse 8 and 9 in chapter 11. "So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth." So how many of you have ever heard of the Tower of Babel? If you were able to attend our vacation Bible school last summer, we learned all about the Tower of Babel. So this might just be a review for you. The word Babel means confusion. So that place, this place where they're building the city and the tower, was called Babel because that's where the people were building their tower when God confused them. Now, why did God do this? He did this because the people disobeyed God and sinned against him. And God is holy and he is just, and he must punish all sin. And he did that this time. The other time he punished sin by sending a flood, and then God sent us the rainbow and promised he was never going to do that again. This time they were punished by him confusing their languages and scattering them all over the whole earth. They stopped building their tower because they couldn't understand each other anymore. And the different families moved away from each other. And they went all over the world just like God wanted them to in the first place. So God is going to get his way, even if we are choosing to do wrong. But wouldn't it have been nicer if the people would have just listened to God in the first place and gone out all over the whole world? We wouldn't have all these different confusing languages. But they chose to not listen to God, and that's why God punished them. So we're going to take a look at our Justin and Jesse story today and see what happened. What's Justin and Jesse doing today? Okay. Mr. Jason, do they really eat bugs in Africa? Jesse cast a horrified look at Justin. There are a few bugs the people in the jungle might eat, but not usually, replied Mr. Jason, a missionary who was visiting the kids' Sunday school class. He continued, but there was one time I didn't understand something important about one really nasty bug. The kids leaned forward in their seats. They wanted to hear this story. One day, shortly after I had come to the jungle, I was walking with my African friend. We stopped when we saw a disgusting bug crawl across our path. It had 2 long, hairy antennas sticking out of its black body. Yuck! Cried the kids. It was pretty ugly. Well, my friend stopped and pointed at it and started saying something. I only knew a few words in his language, and I thought I heard him say the words for you and eat. So guess what I did? You ate it, they shouted. Mr. Jason went on with his story. Well, I picked up the ugly thing and looked at it. My friend kept saying the same thing, so I figured he was daring me to eat it. I thought it would make me look like I was brave if I did what he said. So I opened my mouth. Some of the kids covered their eyes, while other kids covered their mouths. And I was just about to drop the nasty thing in my mouth when my friend slapped the bug out of my hand and started laughing. Mr. Jason paused while the kids giggled, then explained. I found out later that my friend was saying that it was not a good idea to eat this bug because it was a stink bug and would taste really awful. He wasn't telling me to eat it, he was telling me not to eat it. But I didn't understand the language very well and got confused. The kids all clapped and laughed. Wow, I like Mr. Jason, said Justin as he and Jesse left their classroom. Me too. I'm glad he didn't eat the stink bug though. That would have been awful, said Jesse. Yeah, I guess it's easy to get into trouble if you don't understand the language, Justin said as they went to find their parents. The next day, Justin's mom took the kids to the park. Justin and Jesse skipped along the sidewalk. Pretty soon they could see the playground. Can we run the rest of the way? Asked Justin. Sure, Justin's mom replied. On your mark, get set, go! Justin shouted to Jesse. They raced to the play area and climbed up the ropes and crawled through the tunnels, laughing and shouting at each other. But when they came to the top of the big twisty slide, A smaller boy stopped them. He said something, but they couldn't understand him at all. "Huh?" Justin said. The boy chattered at them again and pointed down the slide. "I think he's speaking a different language," said Jessie. Justin shook his head and tried to move past the boy, but the boy put up his hands to block Justin. The kids stared at each other, but the boy wouldn't budge from the slide. Finally, Justin got mad. "I want to slide, please," Justin said firmly. He brushed past the boy and sat on top of the slide. The boy pointed some more and finally turned and scrambled down one of the ladders to his mother, who was sitting on a bench nearby. Justin told Jessie, "I guess he didn't want to share the slide." "Guess not," Jessie agreed. "So go, Justin. I want to turn too." 3, 2, 1, blast off! He shouted as he whooshed down the slide. Suddenly, near the bottom, he heard a splash and felt something cold and wet spreading across his pants. He stood and looked at his backside. "Oh no!" "What happened?" asked Jessie from the top of the slide. "There was a huge puddle on the slide, and I'm all wet. I didn't see it." The other boy came over with his mother, who said, "See, my son? He tell you no go on the slide." Justin was embarrassed and a little mad. Why didn't the boy tell him in a language he could understand? Jessie slid down the slide since Justin had already dried it off with his pants. "Hey, Justin, this is just like the story Mr. Jason was telling us about when he didn't understand the guy and almost ate that icky bug." Jessie started to giggle, and pretty soon Justin was laughing too. The boy and his mother laughed with them. Justin felt the back of his pants. Yep, they were soaked. But he didn't care. He could change when he got back home. For now, Justin was ready to slide again. "Well, the slide is dry now. Come with us," he said to the boy. The boy looked at him, and Justin waved his hand as if to say, "Come." Then the boy understood. The three of them climbed the ladder and took turns racing down the slide over and over. They spent the next hour playing together. Even Justin's mom and the boy's mom sat together and started talking. When it was time to go home, Justin and Jessie said goodbye to the boy and his mom. The boy turned to Justin and said, "Gracias." Thank you? Then turned and grabbed his mom's hand. "That was confusing," said Justin. "Yeah, but we made a new friend," said Jessie. "Maybe you two should learn some Spanish," said Justin's mom as they walked up the sidewalk. "Is that what he was speaking?" Jessie asked. "Yes, but his mother could speak some English, so I could understand her pretty well," Justin's mom replied. "Yeah," said Justin as he patted his wet pants. "I guess it's pretty important to understand each other." All right. So when you hear someone speaking a different language that you don't know, it can be really confusing. Justin found that out in the story today, didn't he? But it's interesting to know that the Bible tells us why people speak in different languages. When God commanded the people to spread out all over the world, they did not obey. They decided to stay together and build a tall tower and a city of their own. So God punished their sin by making new languages so that the different families could not understand each other, and it was very confusing. Since they can't understand each other anymore, they ended up doing what God had told them to do in the first place. Everyone found their own families who could speak the same language and moved away all over the world. God is just, so he had to punish their sin, and he did that by confusing their language. And that's why we have different languages all over the world still today. So I hope you learned something from today's lesson. I hope most important of all, other than knowing now why we have different languages in the world, is that we learn that we need to obey what God tells us to do, or else we're going to be punished. And also that we are all sinful. We all do bad things. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we don't want to listen to God and we choose not to. And if we're doing that, then we can ask Jesus to forgive us for the things that we have done wrong. We can say some of those I'm sorry prayers and try to do better. And know that Jesus loves us no matter what, even when we make bad choices. And he wants us to follow him and believe in him and live in heaven with him again someday. So I hope you guys have a good week, and happy Mother's Day again. Bye.